Hey everybody, Jeff here, aka Penguin or Penguin Speaks. I'm doing this video because I got a overwhelming response with the post that I did yesterday about hope. And I just want to answer some more questions and be more involved with the group. For me, the best way to do that is in video form, so I hope you don't mind that. It's just a way that I can better express myself. While I can write, and I am told that I write well, using one hand is a crutch for me because I can type pretty good one-handed, but it gets tiring after a while. And I've used the text-to-speech programs, and it just doesn't portray the emotion I have and what I want to say. So I'm going to do it in video. Hope you don't mind. That's the way I do things. I do not interact very much in this group. I do read just about every post. I just don't comment on every one because, well, typing one-handed is kind of tough. I decided I'm going to start becoming interactive in my own way. I'm making this video, and I'm probably going to do this maybe a minimum of maybe once a week, but I'm going to talk about the top questions, and I'm going to answer them. So when I say top questions, it's top questions in my mind, not the top responses or anything. Some of what I think is the best question. So I'm going to do that starting with this one today. So here we go. Has anyone lost volume in their voice due to their stroke? Yes. I think a lot of people actually have. I used to have a very much deeper voice as well as a more articulate without this little slur that I have. I used to speak like, well, it's compared to Ross from the show Friends, if you've ever seen that. I used to speak very articulate, very precise, pronouncing every word how it should be pronounced. And I've kind of got away from that because I don't like the way my voice sounds, but I've come to terms with it and I deal with it. My wife calls it my little voice, and it affects me more so some days than others. I have days where my voice seems to be fine, but I do have a lot of days to where it's a little voice and she does have a problem hearing me and things like that, and there's nothing that I can do about that. So again, you just deal with it. You adapt and overcome. Since a stroke, I know that many of you have been thrown curveballs in your life that, what do I do? Where do I go from here? But this, including the voice, because I don't want to stray from the topic, you just have to deal with it. And you have to get used to the fact that people may ask you to repeat yourself or repeat the question. While you can't repeat it at a higher volume, maybe if you're talking to somebody over an electronic device, ask them to turn their volume up or move closer to the person you're speaking to if in real life, or they can do the same. So the answer to that is yes. I think a lot of people do have an issue with losing volume in their voice. Somebody asked, why us? And this is a great question. And while I have never taken pity on myself or questioned what happened, I've always just fought to overcome it. I can see why people would question that, and here are my thoughts on that. Why us? Well, I think that to be able to answer that or to be able to ask that question means you're alive. Regardless of your status, you are alive. And maybe if you believe in a higher power, maybe that's why God chose you to have this, because you are alive. Every person who survives a stroke, the medical field learns something from, believe it or not. But the medical field learns something from everybody who has a stroke and survives. And for the people who are younger, I was 45 when I had my stroke. I think that they learned a lot because they had somebody in there who was young who wanted to get better. A lot of people who are older don't really care about getting better because they feel their life is kind of on the downward trend anyway. So why fight? Why do anything? And I think that's what really helped me was the fact that my my therapists really liked working with me because I was young and I had the desire to get better. And work my butt they did. When I was in rehab, they yeah, that was a difficult time. But in the end, it proved to be a very beneficial time. So I think that's one of the reasons why, because strokes do kill a lot of people. A lot of people. There's no hiding that. But people do survive, and I think that that's one of the reasons why more people are surviving. Is it's kind of a snowball effect. More people are surviving because more people are surviving, and they're learning more from it. So take it with I don't say take it with a grain of salt, but take it with the mindset that hey, because you survived, you're helping somebody else, whether you try to or know it or not. You have helped somebody else survive a stroke. Which leads to the next question. Does anybody suffer from survivor's guilt? I've seen this a lot. I've heard a lot. A lot of people do have survivor's guilt. I don't. I don't think that I can be guilty anytime that I should have died and I didn't. I'm not guilty about that. I'm elated. It's a good thing that you survived. If you cared anything about your life, why feel guilty that other people die while you've survived? You've lived through this. Same thing if you're in a car accident and you're the only one that lived. There's a reason why you lived. And as far as the stroke, it points back to the previous question, because you are an educational piece at that point. And people are learning, the medical field, the doctors, the nurses, the therapists, they're learning because you did survive. So do not, in my mind, take it for what it's worth. Do not feel guilty about surviving, because there's nothing to feel guilty about. I think it's very admirable that you survive, which A, it means you're a fighter. B, it means you have something special inside you that to give to the world, regardless of what it is. And in surviving, you may have already given that to the world. So I don't feel guilty. I don't think anybody should feel guilty about surviving. I'm going to mention one of our members. Her name is Connie French. And I'm going to mention her because I think she comes up with some very good questions, not necessarily about specific things such as, do people wear braces? Do people use canes? Things like that. But she has some that really, it's life in general. It's hard to explain what I'm trying to say here. But I just think she has some great questions, and I ask her permission to be able to use her name and call her out in this. But if you look at her post, there's some very great and questions that make you think. How comfortable are you speaking in front of large groups of people about your stroke? Some people aren't comfortable at all in front of groups of people. So they weren't before their stroke and they're not now. And some people who were before their stroke are not now, simply because they may not like the way they look or they appear to other people because of the stroke. Such as, I know that when I speak, I know that my left side droops. There's nothing I can do about that. So I'm okay with that now. This is how I am now, and I may never get to the point where you can't tell that I have some drooping or anything. And you know what? That I'm fine with that. I've embraced that. I do speak in front of people every now and then. I'm in a different state than I was when I had the stroke. I moved to a different state to be closer to better doctors. And I'm not saying that my doctors I had were bad. I just wanted better. I wanted to do everything I could, and that included uprooting my family. I wanted to do everything that I could to get better. So, but back to the question, I always spoke great in front of people. I took public speaking when I was in the 8th grade. It was actually mandatory back then it was junior high school. I know some of you remember that, not middle school. But it was mandatory that you had to take public speaking. One of the greatest classes, and I don't understand why they've gotten away from that. It's something that should be done because it helps with job interviews. It helps with presentations of anything when you're in college and have to speak in front of people. It helps in so many ways. I don't think that it hurts you in any way. I think it can help you. But I have spoken to people about my stroke, and I would give them scenarios. I would give them my situation. I could talk for a couple hours about leading up to the stroke, the initial stroke, and everything since then. I do have YouTube videos about this subject. I'm going to redo the videos and make them so they're going to be better productions, so to speak. And I'll let you know so you guys can watch that as well. But I don't mind telling my story. If it can help people in any way, then it's a bonus. Why would you want to keep that from the world? If you have something to offer, and this goes back to the other questions, why us? What was it? Why us? And survivor's guilt, things like that. This helps with that because you learn to start being useful. You'll find yourself preparing your speeches and you preparing your testimony, as it were. And if you do it more than a couple of times, you'll see that you start getting the same questions, so you learn how to better answer those questions, either A, more articulately, or B, make it to where you know that they're actually getting what you're saying. That's very important. Is the answer is perceived as coming across as, oh wow, yeah, okay, and you have answered their question. So back to the thing. Are you comfortable speaking in front of a large group of people about your stroke? Yes, I do, and I would love to speak to more people, and that's one of the reasons why I like making videos and things like that, because it can reach people that are not necessarily in front of you. I mean, this is talking on a camera going out to everybody, just like being on a TV show or a news. You're broadcasting to thousands of people. And if I'm getting a point across and people are actually, if one person learns something from what I have to say, then it's a success. So that's my answer on that. What do you think people misunderstood most about you after a stroke? I think people, and it's natural to be very sympathetic with someone who has a stroke and try to help them as far as doing things for them and doing things to support them, which is great. But I think I was misunderstood as far as I didn't question God. I didn't question myself. I never felt sorry for myself. I didn't want anybody's pity. And I think most people think that when somebody has a stroke, they feel like their life is over, so they're going to try to be sympathetic towards that. You know, I'm not, and when I say this, it's no disrespect to anybody if you're dealing with this, but I am not dying of cancer. My life is not over. So don't misunderstand me and think that I feel like it is, because I know it's not. And I'm going to give you a little story. When I was in rehab, I had a nurse come in. She wasn't my nurse, but she just came in and started talking about, you know, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be this. It's okay to feel like this. And this is this. And I got angry at that point. And I actually went to her supervisor and said, why did she come in my room? I don't know her. She's not my nurse or one of my nurses. And it really pissed me off when I had to tell her, you got the wrong room. I have not once felt sorry for myself or questioned anything. I've always been focused on getting better. And I continue to be like that. So it really made me angry for her to come in there and just feel like I was like everybody else who felt this way. I'm not. Didn't like it at all. What impact do you hope to have in this world? That's a great question. That is one of the best questions. And I actually think you guys have answered that for me, believe it or not. When I made the post that I made about hope, I guess is what we could sum it up as, I did that because I know that people, they needed to hear that. I wasn't using myself to brag or anything like that. I was telling people that, hey, you can get better. And you will, if you work at it, you can get better. Well, I think that I am going to start trying to reach more people in when I speak and what I say and what I do. Because if one post that I made in this group had that type of response, I don't see how it could be a bad thing for me to want to say more, because that that overwhelmed me by the response. It really did. When people were saying that I was an inspiration and they really needed to hear something like that, the timing was perfect. I didn't intend for any of that. I really did not intend for any of that. I just spoke from my heart. And if speaking from my heart is going to inspire other people or motivate other people, then that's what I need to be doing. Maybe that is my purpose in this world. Maybe that is why I had a stroke and survived it, so I could teach people about just not giving up. And that applies to not just having a stroke. I think that applies to many things in life. Does hope always overcome? No, we'd be fools to think that. You might have the best hope in the world and you still may pass from this or that or get hit by a bus. You never know what's going to happen. But I think that having hope and knowing that you're not alone is very important. And that's why I talked about not being alone. We're all survivors of stroke, or we're loved ones of survivors of a stroke. And I think that we have to really embrace that and say, hey, this is who I am. And if my story can touch people and help people, I think that's what I do. So I thank everybody here who responded, who reacted, and who are going to respond and react to what I said. I thank you, because I think you actually answered this question for me, because I did not know what my impact would be. And I appreciate you letting me know how impactful the words that I said yesterday were. So I'm going to close for now. Maybe in this week or next week I will answer some more questions. I hope to. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. New Year's coming. It's a new year, everybody. Again, that hope thing comes in there, right? Work hard. Try to do better. Push yourself. Don't just work hard. Push yourself to do what you can't do. Extend your arm. Extend your leg. Just do whatever it takes and want to get better. If you don't want to get better, you won't. I want everybody to get better. I want to get better. They told me I would never get to 100% no matter how well I recovered. I want to once again prove the medical field wrong. I'm alive. I walked. I have some use of my arm. I can move my fingers a little bit. They told me I'd never do any of this. Prove them wrong. Fight for what you want to do. This is Jeff, aka Penguin Speaks, and I say this after every video. Be somebody important. Be yourself. Peace out.